Recording in progress.
Menopause is a journey. It is not designed for the for the weak, right? But that's what women are. Women are strong. And the transition through menopause should be into the second spring of our lives. How we get there, however, is certainly different and unique for everyone, as is our fingerprint. But there are certain foundational pieces that we need to be aware of that can streamline our menopausal transition so that we are living our second spring with joy, vitality, power, passion, all of those playful things that we need in our lives to really embrace the second spring of our lives. So today, no native, she's a, let me change that. So, our guest on the Girlfriend Doctor show today is a journalist, an award winning journalist, an author, and veritably a champion of women in midlife and menopause. She has had 2 decades in front of the camera and 13 awarded Emmys. She hosts a weekly podcast called Coming Up Next, interviewing thought leaders and celebrities about embracing your next chapter. She founded Take Flight Productions, which has developed several media projects, including a weekly syndicated entertainment show, 2 podcasts, and currently co producing a documentary on navigating menopause. She has a long history uncovering stories that inspire others. She is an inspiration, and today she'll share her journey, solutions, and commonalities that so many of us will experience and have experienced as well as have in common. So I'm excited to share with you Tamsen Fadal, who is a strong voice in the menopause world and also a authentic leader and a very lovely woman. I know you will enjoy this conversation today. Welcome, Tanzan, to the Girlfriend Doctor show. It's great to have you here.
Oh, it's so great to be here. Thank you so much.
I enjoyed meeting you in New York City and share with our audience that I was in New York City for a conference and emailed Tamsin and was just so inspired by what she's doing. And we met up for a great Italian dinner near
Yes.
your news station, TV
Yeah.
station. And it was just a lovely experience, a lovely time to connect with a like minded person. And you shared with me a bit of your personal journey. And I would love for you to share why you're so passionate about menopause and a bit about your journey.
Yeah. I always say if anyone had told me I'd be doing this 5 years ago, I would say like, no, no, you got the wrong girl. It was several years ago now, and I was in the studio, and it was 10:30. It was a Friday night. I remember it. I don't remember very much these days, but I definitely remember that. It was 10:30. We were in a commercial break right before we did a business segment every night. And I got, that feeling that I've now learned so many women understand so well, a anxiety, a heart racing out of control, not being able to like get it back into, to beating right, hot. And I had been having some issues during a lot of the show and really leading up to it of seeing a word and not being able to, I recognized it, I could see it, but I couldn't process or get it out of my mouth. If the word was, artist, I would look at it and I would try to phonetically remember what that word was to process it, but it just wouldn't work. And I remember thinking like, gosh, is this age? Is this dementia? It's like, is there something serious going on? Am I drinking too much caffeine? I gave myself a whole list of reasons. And I had been having that for the first kind of half hour of the show. And I just remember like, oh my gosh, I'm going to either fall off the stool or I don't know what's going to happen. So I said out loud, half joking, because I work in a studio of guys. And I said, if I fall, somebody catch me. And the sports anchor at the time said, wait, are you being serious? I think you should get off of the set. And so I remember he just like walked me. We have the stools that we have to, kind of climb off of. And he helped me climb off of it and walked me to the bathroom. And I just collapsed on the floor and just laid there, like trying to just calm down my entire body, cool it off, calm it down. And I laid there with my face on the floor. And I still think like, did I really do like, when you're so desperate, just doesn't matter what you do. And I'm sprawled out in my dress and I have my one of my boss came downstairs. So 2 guys standing over me, like, "Are you okay?" And I thought, I don't know what is going on. And that was, that was like that moment that you have where you say that I need to take control of what's happening in my life. I had no idea. I had not talked about menopause with anybody. And I was still bleeding because I have endometrium polyps. So I never had the like, hey, I've gone 12 months without my period. I was bleeding all the time randomly. So I assumed that was just a irregular period. And I started doing really deep dive research into what was happening. I've been a journalist for 20 plus, almost 30 years now. And that's all I know how to do really is ask a lot of questions. And that's what I did. And I went from one doctor to the other doctor. I did a blood test where they showed me, what my levels were. A doctor finally said to me, in menopause, any questions in my patient portal? And I thought, what do you mean? Do I have any questions? When did I hit menopause? So that's kind of where it happened in full circle. I'm the one now telling women, hey, it could be menopause. So that's my story. And I don't, now I've learned it's not so unlike so many other women out there around the world, really.
Yeah, it wasn't the hot flash. It wasn't the night sweat. It wasn't, it was
Mm-mm,
this
mm-mm.
anxiety and the forgetfulness, right? The
Oh, the
memory
forgetfulness
lapses, and
and the
especially
heart, my heart racing.
heart palpitations. And that is very, very symptomatic of menopause. And I think that's where, well, how old were you when all this was happening? When it started?
I keep losing track of years, right? I was 47 or I think I was 47 years old because it happened in November, right before my birthday, right before I
And
turned 48. Yeah.
and your doctors were never like, okay, look at these signs and symptoms, or let's
Never,
consider some hormonal therapies or intervention or
never.
detox or any of that.
And I had not been on birth control for years. And I had two surgeries to get polyps removed, and never was perimenopause or menopause talked about. Two surgeries. So, and those were leading up to probably 3 and 2 years before that. I had surgery a year apart.
So the
Yeah.
journey into menopause, really recognizing that these symptoms, atypical symptoms, are really typical
Yeah.
symptoms, and they lead us into, surgeries and, anxiety and mood issues, relationship issues. And I'd love to hear, because you are an amazing journalist and you
Too
have a
kind.
great way of asking questions and then responding. And so I remember reading a book by Paulo Coelho, and it was Veronica Decides to Die. I mean, it's a great book, you guys. It is such a good book. And so it's this woman at 50, I think she's at 52, and she's
Mhm.
having heart palpitations, anxiety attacks, and she's put into basically a psych hospital. And I was like, oh my gosh, those are just menopausal symptoms. Those are someone give her progesterone. I'm thinking as I'm
Right.
reading the book. It's such a good book. And it's these symptoms that are from the neurologic consequences of the hormonal changes and not beyond the reproductive hormones. So what were some surprising things you found out during this journey?
Oh gosh. I mean, one that I wasn't alone,
Yeah.
and the number of women that are dealing with it, and the number of women that are dealing with it in the workplace. And that was a category I came into. I don't come at it as a nutritionist or a fitness person or a doctor, or any of those things. I came at as a journalist and somebody that was dealing with it at work, and going, heading toward my 50s, which was a time where I didn't know that I'd still be working in television at the time, like that. There was one point I remember a mentor of mine years back saying, like, you're going to start to age out when you get 40, 45 years old in this industry because they don't want you anymore in front of the camera, and somebody younger comes in and replaces you. And that was always something that I had kept in the back of my head. And now that is not the case. That is not what we're seeing anymore. Thankfully, that's not the norm. Not that it doesn't still exist, but it's not the norm, and it's certainly not my norm. Which I feel blessed about every single day. But I'm also aware that what comes with that time period is the intersection of menopause and midlife, and just kind of finding meaning. But doing this in the workplace is not always easy, and so I've interviewed a lot of people, and I've interviewed a lot of women that have had to leave the workplace as a result of not, one, having the support, two, not having the knowledge of what they're dealing with, and three, even if they have the knowledge of what they're dealing with, not knowing where to go to get help.
And do you think that women, like that industry standard of aging out after age 45, was because of these symptoms? the anxiety, the mood swings, the, memory losses
Right.
versus our laugh lines and smile lines.
Well, it depends on the industry, I think, honestly. I've talked to a lot of people that are, in front of cameras or in Hollywood that, would say it's the laugh lines. And then there are a lot of people that are not, that are just simply saying it's because of age. But I do wonder if we went back and we don't have the data, but if we had the data to find out whether or not they were hitting that peak of not being, not feeling confident. That's what it is, really. It's
Mm.
less about the brain fog and more about the lack of confidence that the brain fog brings. When you go into a meeting and you can't remember what you're presenting, or you don't know what you're saying on television, or you're having a conversation with your boss and lose your train of thought, that just smacks your confidence really hard. And it's hard to recover from when it happens day in and day out and you don't know why.
And you don't know why. And the burnout from the
Sure.
hormonal changes and not doing the necessary lifestyle changes, supplements, etc., that will enable us to breeze through menopause into the second spring of our lives, right?
And it's exhausting. It's exhausting to think about. You're at an age where look, I'm a lot more tired than I was when I was whatever age. I used to be able to go out late at night, have a couple of drinks, eat a disgusting, huge fattening meal, and wake up the next morning at 6:30 and go to the gym. Like, if you told me I had to do that this weekend, I would say, like, please don't make me. So I think that it's the exhaustion in so many ways, and I also think it's the fact that um I don't know. I think we get to be we feel a little more vulnerable as we age. We
Yeah.
we just do.
I think one of the things that I'm definitely seeing is this corporate awareness now of
Sure.
menopause or midlife transition and a general desire, maybe not again in all industries, but some industries, especially women, like women head industries or companies that have women CEOs as their head.
Hmm.
And I've seen them, reach out to me, ask questions. What can we do for our employees? How can we, put, like, for
Yeah.
example, keto-green 16 as an employee program? How can we do those things to help our clients without creating a stigma?
That is the big, it's there's always the other side to it, right?
Right.
And that is the issue, is that you don't want to have that stigma of, hey, I'm getting a lot of menopause support, and then, hey, she needs menopause support,
Right. Right.
and
And
that's
that's,
that's tough.
yeah. And so this, like, transforming this time period into recognizing that we're going to be have a whole nother level of energy, intellect, wisdom,
Hmm.
insightfulness, intuition that we can definitely use in the second half of our lives. Bringing that to be what menopause means versus hot flashes, mood swings, she's losing it, or, she's angry, it's got to be her
She's crazy.
hormones, right? She's
Yeah.
crazy, she's,
Yeah.
yeah. Um,
I've heard that joke way too many times to find it in any way funny.
Right, right. I always say, when it talks about mood disorders like bipolar, is it bipolar or hormonal?
Yeah,
It's really, there's
I
that
know.
hormonal component to that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, in bringing it into the workplace, what do you think would really help women midlife, 40s, 50s, 60s?
Look, I think at the end of the day, the where I think the stigma could go away, and I'm not an expert on this at all, but I think that a sense of community gives you confidence and gives you purpose. And I think if there is that sense of community there, it just feels better. I know myself, when I started speaking out about it, and I didn't have anybody to talk to about it. I had bit by bit have one woman after another, just within my small workspace, come up to me and say, like, hey, I think I'm going through this. Can you help me out? Hey, I shared your Instagram with somebody. Hey, you put a author on there. I shared their book with somebody. So that sense of community is being built. But I think that every one of us needs to be an advocate for ourselves, and then for the woman that's standing next to you, or the woman that's coming up behind you.
I love that, being an advocate for ourselves and the women around us. That my friend JJ Virgin always says, "The rising tide floats all boats," and
It
it
does.
is. It's so true. And so also there's that acceptance, that acknowledgement, and that grace. And that grace, knowing that we're going to go through, men are going to go through their andropause time period,
Hmm.
and how can
Hmm.
we now, where physiology affects our behavior, how can we now improve the physiology so that we can feel at home in our body and confident in our
Yes.
body? So
Yeah.
that's that one piece, the menopause in the workplace piece, and that self confidence. So, what are things you do to, retain that charismatic self confidence?
Gosh, I wish I had it all the time first. But I try. I try to make sure the biggest thing for me was being educated about it. And then the second was having other people to talk to about it, having somebody like you to reach out to and say like, hey, I understand, not as a doctor, but as a woman, like, hey, I understand. Hey, I've got some knowledge for you. The fact that I have people at work that are coming up to me and asking me questions all the time forces me to learn more so I can help them, even if I know it, I want to make sure I know it double, right, to help somebody else. I'm sure you do that all the time. I'm working on a documentary right now to be able to talk about it to women so women don't feel alone. Because when I looked around and I said, oh my gosh, 1 billion women around the world are going to be in menopause and all of us feel like we're alone. That can't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really been a huge part of my advocacy. And I think that's what's given me confidence when I go into the workplace. And I don't always have it. Some days I get on the air and I didn't sleep the night before, so my confidence isn't there. Or I can't do what I need to do, which is ad lib, be able to talk off the cuff about a story. And I don't feel as confident as I did maybe 20 years ago. But then I find strength in other areas. I find power in other areas for myself in terms of having life experience, in terms of knowing that at 52, I'm still sitting there next to somebody that's 20 years younger than me and can carry on a conversation and have a great time. And what I found recently, which I thought was interesting, is that competitive thing, and I had it, and I think we all had it when we were younger, has dissipated. Like it's really not. Look, I don't not look at somebody and say like, wow, she's beautiful or smarter or more successful. We just have that. But I don't have that. I want to be her and I won't be happy until I am.
Mm-hmm.
And that feels really good. And because that takes a lot of energy and it takes away a lot of power instead of giving yourself power
And joy, right? Joy, we
and
say
joy.
comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so in this, back to this workplace, do you see like specific things over and over again and with your interviewing, key characteristics that impart a healthier transition, a more natural transition? What are some of those commonalities?
Yeah, I think what is interesting, I was thinking about what you said about stigma. I think that we lose that stigma if we start to build up things in the workplace where it's more about health and wellness early on than starting at 40. So you're not seeing every 40 to 45-year-old woman walk into a conference room and have to learn about menopause. If you're seeing it being an entire community of generations, and that's why I'm encouraged by this space because I think it is intergenerational. Younger women want to learn about it for themselves. They want to learn about it to work with their moms. They want to learn, mothers want to learn about it because they're going through it. So I think that helps get rid of that stigma. And I think that's really important. And to your question, I think there are a couple of different touch points that you can do. And, you talk about it, in so many different ways, not just from a clinical standpoint, but from the nutrition standpoint and the lifestyle and the fitness and the supplemental part and the power of community. I think all of those things are going to be necessary to come into a workplace to make sure that when we say work-life balance, it doesn't mean that you get 2 weeks off, 4 weeks off a year. Work-life balance is going to mean that wellness component has to come into the workplace in a
Oh,
very fair way,
a very fair way and inclusive way, because
in an
at
inclusive
some
way.
level, everyone's suffering or could suffer if we don't make those changes. And the earlier we can make them, the better. Tamsen, my daughter, who just turned 15, we were in the car driving to school one day, and she goes, "Mom, I don't understand. I'm the only one of my friends that doesn't have problems with my period." And I was like thinking to myself, oh, yeah, because we do things differently. We have a focus
Sure,
on things. She's out with her horses, which is,
sure.
being out in nature and grounding. But also, I know when the hormones are changing, and I'm like, okay, making you an extra mighty maca, drink this on your way out.
Yeah.
Here's
Yep.
my harvest
Which
beef
I love,
stew
by
for
the way.
dinner. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
It saved me. It saved me the
Yeah, I know.
combination of adaptogens. It's nothing I learned in medical school. It's nothing I
No.
learned in OBGYN residency, taking care of women and hormones. We basically put them on Prem-Pro or birth control pills, and I
Yep.
removed a lot of uteruses until I realized that the uterus is just the victim of hormone imbalance. I mean, I can't
Hmm.
eliminate hysterectomies completely, but I was able to reduce them when I learned this combination between lifestyle medicine and supplementation and decrease, balancing hormones and decreasing inflammation. If we just look at those two things, and I would say the third is supporting our adrenal glands, because
Sure.
our adrenal glands have to make up for our ovarian function and produce more DHEA so that we have more circulating estrogen and testosterone. And looking at those three things, if we address those three areas, we really help and very quickly can help the symptoms, from the heart palpitations. What is
Hmm.
that indicating? Is that the
Hmm.
adrenaline and deficiency in magnesium or progesterone? Maybe let's try these things. Let's test for these things and
Right.
optimize your body's ability to detox. So one of the things that I think that helps with longevity, and think about, okay, we want a quality of life, not just a quantity of life, but we want a quality of life that is enigmatic, that is just energetic and beautiful, and we maintain
Right.
curious and this a high quality passionate life, is the concept of Dr. Martinez talks about this in his psychoneuroimmunology work, and he says a healthy self narcissism, that ability to like yourself no matter what. Like, so you're not
Yeah.
comparing. Well,
Yeah.
that's that person that I like myself. Other people like me. That
Yeah.
healthy self narcissism, he calls it. I think that's an interesting way to put it, but that's a very common feature in centenarians, people over 100. So
Yeah, absolutely.
if that's not, if like we've
They
been in
see
this,
themselves.
they see themselves and appreciate themselves, and
Hmm.
say the battle scars and the wounds and all of those good things that we've had. By the time we get to this stage in our life, we've experienced some shit, right?
Hmm. Yes, we have. And then some.
And then some. And so with that, building up that confidence, because oh my gosh, you guys check out Tamsen Fadal's Instagram. There's so many, and they're all good, but there's
Oh,
one where you're
thank you.
putting on makeup and talking about dating, dating midlife, and I just love that one. So that sense
Thank
of
you.
being so authentic and real, like, how do you get to that point? I thought about it this morning as I was putting on my eyelashes and, putting my makeup on,
Look
just like,
fabulous.
thank you.
It's funny. I, 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 I didn't feel comfortable doing that for a really long time, to be honest with you. I put my makeup on before I went out the door. I grew up in Texas where, my mom was like, she didn't go to the grocery store without her makeup on. But I think, it happened in my late 40s. It happened only a few years ago. If you go back, maybe a year and a half ago, if you go back and look at my old Instagram, everything was like filtered and blurred. I would go and I would like, there's an app that would like remove my line in
Oh, I
here.
got to find that
Yeah.
app.
Oh my gosh. Oh yeah, I know. It's called Facetune. But and now I'm like, I'm in my bathroom in a robe. Every once in a while, my husband's like, "Did you put that on? You put that on Instagram?" And I said, "Yeah, because I just think the more, I feel like the more real I can be for other people, it makes me feel better for myself,
Hmm.
because then I'm not hiding anything. Then I'm not covering something up. Then I'm not stopping myself from living because I'm afraid of what somebody else's expectation of me is or how somebody else is going to judge me. And, I've not really, as a storyteller, shared my story so much because I've always interviewed other people. And so something I had to mount for sure. There was no question about that. But once I did, and then I realized it helped people. Like I got this beautiful email from somebody today, and she just talked about how she needed help in the relationship space and dating in midlife. And I had a matchmaking business years ago with my ex-husband at the time, and so I'd written a couple of books about dating, and I've always enjoyed that because we've lived in a lot of different ways, right, over the years. We have a lot of battle scars. And so it was always something that I felt comfortable talking about. And I woke up to her message saying, I'm like, oh my gosh, it brought me to tears. But I realized if you're helping one person and two people and three people, and I think that the menopause place comes the same way, you can't not be real, right? You're not going to help anybody by being who they want you to be. The only way you're going to help people is being real.
That is so true. So let's talk about dating midlife.
Yeah,
And you got married
sure.
not too long ago.
Yes. No, I got married when I turned 50 in October. Yeah. Yeah.
So how was dating different then than it was prior? What
Oh
would you
gosh.
advise someone who's single and dating at 50 and beyond?
Yeah. Well, a couple of different things. I think first of all, the nice thing is we don't have that clock on us that I think that a lot of us had when we were in our, 20s or 30s of like, gotta get married. I want to have kids. If I want to have kids, I want to do it a certain way. I want to. Now, I'm not saying that everybody has that anymore. Times have certainly changed, but people do still have that kind of clock on them if they hit 40 years old or too old, and to be married for the first time. And I don't I don't look at it like that. But what I like about doing it in your 50s is it's very different. You don't have that clock on you. I also think that we understand commitment can come in a lot of different forms. And that's super, super important that commitment could be living with somebody or could be committed to somebody and not living with somebody or could be getting married. And so that relaxes us a little bit. And finally, I don't think I didn't have the list anymore. I didn't have a list of like who my person was going to be, this, that, this. He doesn't fit that. I don't know. Now he only fits 5 out of 6. I don't know if that works. I didn't have that anymore. And finally, I was at this age, I was looking for something different. And I think a lot of people are. They're looking for somebody that, fits their value system, that they can do what they want to do with this in this next chapter of life. I mean, maybe you want to travel more. Maybe you want to live in another area. Maybe you want to not have a house when you want to rent now. Maybe you want to downsize. You've got to find somebody that fits those things. And I don't think that the person that fit my 25-year-old or 35-year-old self certainly is not the person that I married, a year and a half ago.
Hmm. Hmm. So letting go of those preconceived lists and notions,
Yes. Yes. It's so much more relaxing. So much more relaxing.
and then how about sex post menopause? Sex in menopause, sex post
Yeah.
menopause, and finding like what are people saying to you? What are some things that you've discovered about it?
Well, I always say I was a menopausal bride because my poor husband, like, I was like this wild and crazy girl. And then, we get married like 2 years before. I'm like, I'm in menopause, just so you know. Sex has been something that I have had to be very, very, I had to communicate a lot about. And I had to talk about what I like, what I don't like, where we're going with it, what I want. And it stopped being just like, let's go out for a night, have some drinks and jump in bed. It's different than it was. It is. And I've had to tell other women to not be shy talking about it. I was writing something and I shared it with my husband. It was very detailed, about our sex life. And he's like, who's going to read this? And I said, well, hopefully everybody, and he goes, what? But I would have done that 10, 15. I don't even know if I'd have done it 5 years ago. But I think that it's really important to communicate. And that's what I talk to a lot of the women about that reach out to me because sex is not necessarily a pleasure to them. And a lot of times it's something to get done with and just a chore to be done with because it's not comfortable and it can be very painful and there is not a libido. And to really focus on that area of your body and make that part of your get ready for bed at night routine. I make fun of the fact that I used to just get away with brushing my teeth and now I've got to like oil and lube and re-oil and reapply all the time, all areas of my body. It's just kind of the way it is.
Oh my gosh. Again, I love your authenticity around this. And
Oh,
but it's true. I think, that one piece, and I talk about this with, I say the ABCs of sexual CPR, reviving your sex life, my program, Sexual CPR. And so, A is accept where you are right now and like honor it, be grateful. We've
yep,
got this
yep,
amazing body, cathedral of our spirit, and, accept where we are right now and what our desires are, and recognizing too, where is that desire mismatch? Communicating about that. The B is be present. Be
yes,
present. Don't be doing your to-do list, your grocery
yes,
list, all of those
yes.
carpool, all of those things that can distract us, and then we're not present during times of intimacy. And C is
100%.
communicate. Communicate, 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 and communicate what feels good, what you want. Again, the desire mismatch, and it can go both ways. A female can have more desire than her partner, and just recognizing those pieces and how you're able to communicate in a positive way, because there's no area that's more vulnerable to us in our lives than our
Yeah.
sexual
Well, it's
intimacy.
it goes back to confidence again, right? It goes back to confidence, Bill. I think for me it does anyway. Look, when I feel sexy, I feel confident. When I don't feel sexy, I don't. Period. Like that's, I'm aware of that part of me.
I like that, sexy confidence. sexy
Yes.
confidence. Yeah, yeah, you say that so well. And so in working now, because you've blown up on Instagram and have been so good at communicating with people, that
Thank you.
in we're looking at this piece of desire and changes through menopause and solutions. What do you feel like are some of the key solutions or the key things that women really need to know to make this second spring of their lives just juicy?
Yeah, I feel first of all they need to know that this is a different time, but not a worse time. And I think that's what often happens, like the less than syndrome. And I just think that people they need to see people that are thriving and not just surviving in this time. I also think that it's important, and I try to do this, is show women how to go about their day because I think actionables are so important. It's easy to do something from 30,000 feet and read something like, eat healthy, do this, do intermittent fast, which is amazing, but then how to do it. I think those actionables are really important. I need those little kind of details to help me feel confident. And then I guess finally is like a continuing to educate themselves about what makes them feel important. Because once you give them actionables, they have to put it into play and see if it works. And so supplements and some answers on, how hormones work, what hormones are, what it all means and how it really can be impactful. I had to change my hormones. I was telling you about this, is that my body wasn't absorbing estrogen and I was feeling crappy and thinking like, what now? Like I went on hormones, what now? After I finally, I didn't want to do it for a long time. I was afraid.
And say why
And
you were afraid too about hormone
yeah,
therapy and
sure.
yeah.
Yeah, I was afraid because I didn't have the knowledge that I have now, but somewhere in the back of my mind, I always thought that, estrogen equals breast cancer. My mother was diagnosed at the age of 45 with breast cancer and died at the age of 51, the age that I just passed. So that was always a very scary thing that just kind of, it sits in the back. When you have a mother that dies of, breast cancer and went through a double mastectomy, it just kind of is a cloud that sits over your life forever. And I couldn't escape that. And I was always aware of it. But I didn't understand where my fear came from. And when I finally understood where my fear came from, which is a 2002 study that must have somewhere I heard or learned about, or somebody told me, I couldn't even tell you where it came from, but scared me. And so I always thought that hormones equaled, a problem. And I've since found out that is, that study had a very different beginning, middle, and end. And the headlines were very different, what came out of it versus what it was going in to look at. And when I went on hormones, I was like, okay, all my problems are solved. But the truth is that I had to continue to educate myself and just recently had to, switch out some things and hopefully I'm back on a path in the right direction.
Ah, yeah, no, it sounds like it, but it's also a journey, right? There's
Yes,
also,
a
we have
hundred
to
percent.
tweak it constantly. We can't be on one, prescription for the rest of our life. There's that times
Mm-hmm.
where we need to change things. And I was
Yep.
talking with another person the yesterday, and she was saying that her hormones were low, her vitamin D was really low. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
you can't, your hormones will not work well if your vitamin D is really low. So that is one of those key lab tests that every
Mm-hmm.
woman needs to know, every woman and man needs to know. And then how can we naturally get more of it and supplement when we need to? Because
Right.
for our hormones to work
Right.
well, that vitamin D level has to be up, and often that connection's not made. And then it becomes more
Yes.
important to get sunlight, morning sun, evening sun, beach holidays, and again, whatever it may be. So that's really important. So how now? What is a day in your life like?
A day in my life. Let's see. So I'm up usually around 8 o'clock when, I hit an alarm once or twice, even though you're not supposed to, but I just do. And then I try to get to the gym by 8:30 or 9 o'clock. And then, so that's morning. And then I work on this, I work on, menopause advocacy and what I want to try to do in this space and how to educate and, podcasts and interviews and, meeting incredible women like yourself, which I just love. I do a lot of speaking events, in this area of women's health. And then by 1 o'clock, 1:30, I'm getting ready for work. And 2 o'clock, I go to the studio. And then I anchor the 4, 5, 6, and 10 o'clock newscasts. So they're, yeah, about 4 hours on the air And then the weekends are to just kind of chill out with my husband and walks in Central Park Saturday and Sunday mornings as much as I can.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. Because again, like how it can fit in, how lifestyle is so important, how
Yes.
that routine is really important, that you've got your sleep focus, you've got your movement focus, and somewhere in there you're eating really good food. So let's talk about in the
Yes.
Girlfriend Doctor platform, there's four key pillars: nourish,
Hmm.
shine, awaken, and embrace. I'm going to ask you four
Yep.
quick rapid fire questions. What is
Sure.
your favorite food that really like lights you up when you like this was your last meal, what would that be?
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, I can give you the bad one and I can be the good one.
Perfect.
The good one I love is I love vegetables, but I love them cooked with lots of olive oil because I'm Mediterranean. So lentils are my go-to, lentils and spinach combined.
Mm.
That's my go-to for the healthy. For the
Is
not
that
healthy,
imjadra? Is that imjadra? It's, I think the Arabic
well,
word for cooking lentils and
it
spinach.
is.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Oh, that's right, because we talked about this. We
Yeah.
talked about our
Middle
backgrounds.
Eastern. Yeah.
And yes, and yeah, pizza's my go-to. I'm a fourth Italian, so I don't have any choice on that.
There you go. There you go. And then shine. Like, what is a skincare hack that keeps you feeling, looking, glowing, sexy confidence?
I love experimenting all different kinds of oils and stuff, but I use olive oil on my face actually. So
Mm.
that's my big one. And then before events, I dump my face in a bucket of ice. That's the other thing that I do to reduce inflammation.
Oh,
It's a quick one. Yeah.
oh, okay. Oh,
Yeah. You just go
goodness.
in and out and in and out of the ice. Yeah. Before you put your makeup on. It's
Woo.
not comfortable, but it works.
Oh my gosh. Well,
Yeah.
definitely. Okay, that is one I had not heard before, but I think that's a
Yes.
really good hack. That is a
Yes.
really good hack. And then Awaken, what is a book you are reading or have read recently that is, praiseworthy?
Mm. I had a couple of those recently. I feel like the names are gonna escape me, but there's a daily meditation book, and I'm gonna send you the title of it, but it goes every single day. It's like January 1st, 2nd, 3rd,
Hmm.
4th, 5th. It reminds me of the old school book that was pink. I can't remember what they were called, but they were like when you were younger, and this is when you're grown up. But they're daily meditations, and I've had them around for years and years. And every year I read, every night I read a page, and every year I start back over again. So it's not new, but it's been around for a while. I also have my Menopause book, by the way, in my kitchen. True,
Awesome.
true.
Awesome. Oh my goodness. Oh, you like the Mediterranean tabbouleh in there,
I
whereas I take
love,
out the cracked wheat and I put
I
in,
love.
yeah.
Yep.
So, so good. And I can drink olive oil. It's so good. And
Yeah,
olive
so
oil
can I.
soap is another one that's also from the Middle East that
Yes,
I love. I have Lebanese olive oil soap in my showers, at our wash stations. Yeah.
they're
And then
wonderful.
intimacy. So this is the embrace platform is what is something that keeps your intimacy, your connection tight? Like what is something? And sometimes I ask what's your favorite sexual position. You can answer that one too.
Yeah. I think Vine is, I don't get a lot of time, during the week. I'm at work until 11:30 every night. I get home and I'm tired and I was like the weeks doesn't. And I think it's that Saturday of just reconnecting, getting to know the person again, and when, he and Ira and I get up in the morning, we're at the park, then we go to have, lunch and we come back home and sometimes we'll take this like 2 hour nap. And that's intimate. That's the intimate time for me. And look, it's definitely changed. It used to be like 2 a.m. on a Saturday. That'd be the most intimate time. But I think that reconnection and that communication is really important for me because that is a turn on to me. There's no question about that. And
Yeah.
that is where my intimacy mentally needs to start now.
And that's
Yeah.
it. There's a physiology to that. It's that oxytocin. For women,
Hmm.
we get oxytocin through that connection, that reinforcement that we're
Yes.
loved, cared about, and beautiful. And then for men, the oxytocin makes them want to roll over and fall asleep. So those two
Yes, of
contrasting
course.
things. So
Yes,
that
I've seen
nap
that too.
with connection is perfect. So good. So I want to thank you so much for being
Oh
a
my
guest
gosh,
here
thank
and
you.
doing everything you're doing, showing up. I can't wait for your documentary and your book that you're working on to
Thank
come
you.
out. Tell our audience how they can connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, most of the time I'm on social media, Instagram at Tamsen Fadal. And, we have newsletters that go out all the time, tamsenfadal.com as well, just to kind of keep you up to date on what's going on or any events that I might be speaking at. Because I love to, I love to have people come to those, or at least if they're virtual, to be able to jump in on them. And yeah, I would love to hear from you if you have questions or something new going on or new books. I mean, I love women's stories and I love sharing them.
It shows. It shows. So you guys at Tamsen Fadal on Instagram and tamsenfadal.com. I didn't realize you had a newsletter. I'm going to sign up for
Yeah.
that right now.
Oh, thank you.
I'm looking
Thank you.
forward
Thank
to
you.
it. Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing and your time here today. I want to thank all our listeners too. Talking about menopause is important that we, like what Tamsen said, that we're in community. We lift each other up together, that we are empowered by each other's stories, journeys without comparison. And that concept is, sometimes we hear, well, I didn't have any problem with menopause. So you may feel like,
Right.
oh, well, I must be something, there must be something wrong with me. I must be broken. And that's not the case at all. But symptoms
Mm-mm.
are a signpost. Symptoms are a guidepost to help you dig deeper and keep looking for answers. It is never okay just to put a band aid over it or to power through when you're not feeling intuitively that's
Yes.
the right thing to do. So keep looking for answers and share your questions. We're here to answer your questions. So thank you guys for listening. Until next time.